Hello everyone and welcome to the Farmer Supply Association Agri Report. I'm Randy Klepechka, agronomist with Farmer Supply Association. It is January the 12th and we're filming our first report of the new year. Seems like these winters just go by faster and faster all the time. We'll be planting that 2023 crop here, maybe starting in as quick as a couple of months or so. It just seems like everything goes by so fast, but time to be preparing for that 2023 crop. As we kind of look at the 2023 crop and the situation we're kind of looking at facing this year, it's really kind of similar to what we faced about a year ago. The main story is still input prices. They're still high. They've kind of shuffled around a little bit. Some have gone down a little and some have gone up. If you look at compared to last year, I think fuel, most of the pesticides are up. Of course, interest rates are up, obviously, for borrowing money. Fertilizer is down a little bit compared to last year. Last year, fertilizer was the big story, and it's still certainly plenty high, but it's down from last year. So, we're still looking at input prices as being one of the main stories for 2023. So, you got to think about that, and it's time for our farmers already been planning their budgets for the 2023 crop year. So, some things to think about when we look at that budgeting process. It's easy to say you want to cut this and cut that, but some things you can cut and hurt yourself. So certainly we want to talk about some of those things. Certainly when we look at fertilizers, a lot of guys cut last year. So, and got by with it. If your levels or soil levels are high enough, well, a lot of times you can get by with your cut. Maybe you get more than that depending on how high your levels are, but we can't overdo that when it comes to fertilizer. So don't go too far. Obviously you need a soil test as a basis for this, or you really may not know where you're at unless you have some soil numbers. So, be careful on cutting any fertilizer rates. We look at the different crops. With rice, obviously nitrogen is critical. We can't drop back much from those university rates unless you know that you can get by with less, or you're in the Instar soil test program or something like that, and you might be able to cut back if you had some evidence that you could cut back. But nitrogen's a big deal, and we can't afford to cut much, if any, on that. Zinc is a big deal on a lot of different rice fields, and it's not a blanket deal. It's not every rice field needs zinc, but those fields that do, you really need to take care of those zinc needs out there. And we're talking about these silt loam soils with high pHs and low zinc levels. You know where they are. Your soil test is going to tell you where they are. So be careful about, make sure you get your zinc needs out on those fields. Potash is critical with all of our major crops. So we've really got to make sure our potash levels are good. Phosphorus is a little different animal when it comes to rice and some other crops as well. A lot of our ground will get by without additional phosphorus applications. Of course, you again need the soil test, and you need to know which fields of yours typically respond to phosphorus. Usually low phosphorus, high pH soils are the ones where we can get response from phosphorus. A lot of times we don't see a response. So, that might be a place you can cut, but be sure you can before you do it. With soybeans, again, potash is the biggie that we want to make sure we've got good potash levels out there. It's the key, one of the big keys to high soybean yields, and boron's a big deal on certain soils. Again, it's kind of like zinc. It's on these high pH, low boron soils, this typical silt loam stuff that we've got east of Newport and over in Poinsett and some across county. That's where we really need to be careful about boron and get some boron out there, preferably in your pre-plant fertilizer application. So that's kind of the high points of fertilization for our rice and soybeans. One thing I want to mention about potash, our crops are big users of potash. It's a big key to big yields. But one thing with potash, even if you don't get those full amounts out there pre-plants, you've got a lot of wiggle room to recover if you don't have enough out there. You can use tissue testing and some other things to kind of let if you've got those potash levels that you need out there. So, consider if you're going to cut back on your potash, consider some of these like tissue testing and some other things to make sure to test and verify that you've got enough potash out there, because we can recover if we have low potash or a little bit of marginal potash deficiency, hidden hunger, whatever. We can recover pretty well with an application at that point, pretty late in the season, and still maintain our yield. So, let's if we do cut back on potash, let's use tissue testing, and let's try to determine whether we really are short or not. So that's kind of where we're at with fertilizer needs. Quickly, another place I don't want to see you cut, and y'all hear me every year on this, and that's with the residual herbicides, especially when it comes to rice. To me, just gotta really hammer those residual herbicides. I like 3 applications myself, especially when planting early and we got a lot of time to go, because we talk about it every year. If you miss it, if it comes up, a lot of times it's hard to control, because we've got resistance issues, application issues, weather issues, all kinds of issues that we can face. Once that grass comes up and starts growing, it can be very difficult to kill post-emergence. So I like 3 applications. I like Command out front, right behind the drill. If you have maybe sharpen in there, if you have some flat sedge issues, you might consider that. And then in my second application, something like a Bolero Prowl. And then the third application would be something like a Facet Command. So that's kind of there's a lot of ways you can do this. That's kind of some of my thinking on what I like to see as far as residuals for rice. Obviously, you got to get a rain to activate them. So, if it's forecast for no rain and you can't flush or whatever, then you might not do all this. But if you've got the opportunity to do it and you've got a long period of residual you're needing, I really like that 3 application approach there. So, whatever works best on your situation, but just try to avoid having to make those post-emerge applications. It can be difficult sometimes. As we go into the season, be sure and attend meetings. There's a lot of good information out there, whether at university, industry meetings, whatever. I attended the Poinsett and Cross County meeting on the 10th of January. A lot of good information there. Not a lot new this year as such, but still a lot of good information. The Jackson County meeting will be out at the new Extension Center, the new office they have here south of Newport. That'll be on February 6th. So great opportunity to get good information and see the new facility out there. They're doing a great job out there. As far as field work between over the next month or so, not a lot that's going to need to be done. We need to be thinking about burn down. We need to be thinking about wheat fertilization, but really, probably another month or so, really getting close to, mid-February would be a good timing to start thinking about and getting those applications out. As far as burn down, your good general application would be something like a Roundup plus 2,4-D, or Roundup First Shot, or Roundup Sharpen. The big one that we need to be concerned about is ryegrass. I know some guys put the pre's out back in the fall for ryegrass control. Hopefully they've got some good control. But if you got ryegrass out there, don't wait too long. We need to wait till it greens up and it's actively growing and you get a good warm week of weather or so. But don't wait too long until that stuff is really big and difficult to control. Then you got to look at something like a gramoxone and a gramoxone plus a PS2 inhibitor herbicide or something like that. But let's try to get that ryegrass before it's tillered out all over the country and it's very difficult to control. Try to get it earlier than you've been getting it, and hopefully we'll start getting more of it pre, and hopefully some of that worked really well this year and we'll get some good evidence of the pre-activity on ryegrass applied in the fall. Wheat fertilization, got a little time on that. Unless you've got some really late wheat that hasn't tillered, then you might want to push that into early February, but otherwise really looking at probably mid-February depending on a weather event. You want to get it out in front of a rain, probably on some drier ground. So let's just look for opportunities when we get into February, but certainly some time to play with on that. So that's where we're at right now. Again, getting close to that 2023 crop year, and we'll be with you at Farmers Supply Association all year long as usual. This has been Randy Kopechka with your Farmers Supply Association Agri Report.